1 year ago this weekend, a man called Mark Duggan was shot and killed in North London by a police officer. That event triggered riots that spread from Tottenham across London and further afield to Birmingham, Bristol, Manchester and Liverpool.
You can see a police car being attacked. Youths are gathering around it. This just shows you how the mood of the crowd can change in a moment.
Good evening. Fires are burning across large parts of London tonight as more serious violence breaks out on the streets of the capital for the third night in a row. The latest trouble started in Hackney in the east of the city late this afternoon before spreading to Lewisham, Peckham and now in the last hour.
These are sickening scenes of people looting, vandalising, thieving, robbing, scenes of people attacking police officers.
Today we stand here to plead with all the youth to remain calm, for our communities to stand united. I lost my son. Blacks, Asians, whites, we all live in the same community. Why do we have to kill one another? What started these riots and what's escalated? Why are we doing this?
5 people died during the riots, over 3,000 were arrested and more than £200 million worth of damage done to property. Today, the scenes in Olympic London hardly betray such a recent turbulent past. But beneath the surface, what changed and what more needs to change? Stephen Ekpenyong is from Deptford, south-east London. Now aged 20, he works with a Christian youth charity, XLP. But 4 years ago, he says, he was heading for trouble.
I was the type of person that was always angry. Angry because of the way people perceived and looked at, especially young people from the area. And angry also because my alternative growing up was either prison or a dead-end job. And that came from the teachers from school.
But you felt that you weren't given any alternatives, any opportunities?
or hope for a better future. I learned to stop asking my mum for things. So I just thought, you know what, I'll get on with it. If I need something, I'll go out and get it.
You meant robbed?
Yeah, other words.
And did you ever get caught?
Never.
So what changed things for you?
What changed? I think building relationship with great core of people, and I think XLP has been the main group of people that I had a great relationship with.
XLP is a charity that works with young people.
Yeah. For me, they gave me an alternative to, start afresh. This showed me the different values which I knew I had already, and someone just being there to listen to you, to listen to your problems and actually really, really care about you. That was my alternative. It seems small, but in my life it made a massive difference.
How did it affect your exam results?
In school days I had teachers that didn't really help. But in college, when I got to college, I had a beautiful teacher that actually went the extra mile for me. This is what I'm talking about, having a relationship with young people. And I ended up having 3 A's.
At A-level?
Yeah.
Did you know anyone who were involved in the riots last year?
Oh, of course. I'm a different guy, but doesn't mean that my circle of friends have changed. A lot of my friends was involved in it. And why did they get involved? Because they feel like they will get away with it.
But you weren't drawn in?
Well, there is a temptation to things like that. But like I said to you, I have a lot to lose. And my alternative has been trying to be a light to my community, showing people there's a different way. There is an alternative.
What do you do now?
Me, now I'm the director of sports for XLP. And what my main job is to use sports as a tool to help change the life of young people and make those young people the light for the community.
Stephen Ekpenyong. Well, I'm joined now by Professor James Arthur, Head of the School of Education at Birmingham University, and by Patrick Regan, founder of the charity XLP, for whom Stephen now works. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Patrick, we heard there from Stephen, obviously a great example of how your project's mentoring programme works and how it instills hope in a future. I'm wondering, to what extent do you attribute the riots of last year to a lack of hope, and to what extent is that still present?
No, I think it still is a major issue. You know, for me, there was no single cause of the riots last year. You know, and I don't think there's no single solution. You know, one size fits all approach that we should be taking. But I do feel that we need to look seriously and honestly at the context which young people are growing up in, the influences that surround them, the opportunities that are available to them, the role models and the values that our culture promotes. I don't think this issue has gone away. This is quite raw for us at XLP. Just recently, a friend of ours lost their son 4 days ago to knife crime in South London. So there's some huge issues in our community. And for us, we really believe in tackling the drivers. And of course, you know, you look at the reports that are written, educational failure has a huge part of this, you know, looking at poor housing, addiction, unemployment, and also the culture of reoffending. You know, 8 out of 10 prisoners reoffend within 2 years. So we've got a long way to go yet.
James Arthur, well, Patrick mentioned the issue of education there. You have focused very much on the importance of education, of character-based education. Is that what's missing?
I think so. There's been much reflection, I think, on the poor parent and poor schools, a lack of hope among young people, and much of this is true. But we're still struggling with the problems stemming from the changes in family life and the culture in our schools. But even when families and schools are successful in teaching virtue to the young people, many of these young people still have to live in a world that seems increasingly hostile to moral values. So I agree with Patrick. Character, I think, the time has come, I think, to bring character to the forefront and again raise the moral values we have as a society and as individuals.
But how, I know you've been involved in a project to engage young people in character-based education. How do you do that? What basis is it? Is it a religious basis?
It's not a religious basis. I think, faith schools, for example, do have an advantage. We know from Ofsted reports that 44% say of Catholic schools are rated outstanding for their pupils' behaviour, compared to a national average of only 24%. But you can teach virtue to young people. You can teach young people to be honest, not to cheat, deceive or steal, to be reliable members of society, to be good citizens. Because we all want respectful individuals who think before they act and consider the consequences of their actions before deciding what direction those actions will take. And schools can actually contribute to that. But we've lost, to some extent, the moral language in schools to communicate that.
Patrick, do you agree we need to instill character? The independent report after the riots said as such as well. We need to instill character, resilience.
Yeah, I do, but I think that's across society, isn't it? I think that actually some of the behaviour of the rich is just as bad as what we saw last summer. And, it's interesting when we have this results-driven culture in our society. It's interesting when Rebecca Addington almost felt like she had to apologise for getting third in the Olympics, And so I do believe we need character, we need team, we need generosity, compassion, community. I do think we need to also look at how us as society, how we spend our time, how we volunteer. The great thing about Stephen's story is that now he's given back to his community. And I feel that now is an opportunity to really look at what are these key drivers and how can we play our part in bringing about change from the grassroots up.
James, we've had an email from Sarah Mayhew saying the sense of entitlement which motivated many young rioters needs to be examined and challenged.
Well, I agree. But I'd like to pick up what Patrick said about it's not just about families or schools, it's wider. It's about the professions, the employment of young people. I think that many young people go into some professions these days which actually encourage them to lie, cheat and steal and get what they want from life and to make self-interest their highest value. So yes, we need to look beyond schools and families and look at wider society context, especially what businesses do and how they shape and form young people as they become adults and responsible members of society.
I just feel like this issue of role models is really important. I went to Jamaica, Trenchtown, which was the murder capital of the world, and I interviewed this guy who was called Prodigal. He was a gang leader of the gang called the Fatherless Crew, and they had something like 11 guns between, just sort of 6 or 7 of them. And I said to him, "Why did you get in the gang?" And he said, "Lack of self-love." And I said, "How did you get out?" And he said, "I found someone who wasn't the gang leader who I could aspire to be like." And I think so often that people are looking for people. And I think that we need people at every level of society. You know, we need the state, we need our leaders, we need our business people as well to show good character. So we have that generosity, compassion, and that involves sacrifice on all our behalves.
I agree. Just look at the Olympic Games, the humility, the gratitude shown by those British members of Team GB who have been so wonderful, and they are wonderful role models and exemplars for young people today.
What about the comments of Eric Pickles, the Secretary of State for Communities and Local Government? He's still talking tough today on the need for deterrence. Were long prison sentences not part of the solution, Patrick?
Well, I think there's been a lot of talk since the riots about tough enforcement. And I think enforcement is necessary. If people break the law, then they need to be punished. But it only ever gives you short-term solutions. And when I've worked with the police, and the police have got a huge challenge because, you know, you talk to most young people in London, there's a lot of hatred towards the police. But when I've spoken to the police and they've invested in intervention projects, then they've actually had huge results. I mean, I was involved in what's called a gang call-in in North London recently, where they called in 14 people who are known to the police, the known gang members. And we did a sense where we got a victim talking about some of the issues that they've been suffering as a result of gun and knife crime. We had an ex-gang member there, we have a paramedic there, and 14 of them, we gave them a choice. He said, you can now engage and in employment and training opportunities and we will support you. Or if you carry on this way, then unfortunately the police are going to have to crack down. And 14 of them now, I understand, are engaged in employment or training.
Well,
so
Patrick,
I think intervention is crucial.
Very, very interesting discussion. Thank you both very much, Patrick Regan and James Arthur.